Hi, I'm Craig. I'm the Vice President of Aries Foundation. This is Thursday for Knowledge Thursday, our weekly webinar series presented by Aries Foundation for Financial Education Incorporated. Aries Foundation Financial Education was created to help everyone have a better relationship with their money. Our mission is that we believe that financial wellness is a contact sport. There needs to be guidance and encouragement to go along with the tools and software, otherwise engagement just doesn't happen. To learn more about how we are able to help your business with go to our website, www.ariesfoundation.com.org. Some disclosures before I begin. The presentation is meant for educational purposes only. We share and make available all recordings. We just ask that if you're going to use them, it's for educational purposes only. The Aries Foundation Foundation of Education is a nonprofit organization and is not affiliated with any security-related business and is not a registered investment advisor. We at Aries strongly recommend if you have any questions regarding tax or legal advice, you seek out the help of a professional. So coming to you live from YGK Kitchen Cabinet Design, located at 308 Walnut Street, Newton Center. Our hosts for today are Mandy Williams, Project Manager, and Sophia Vale, Sales and Marketing at YGK, both of whom will be joining us in discussion a little later. But for now, Mandy, can you tell us a little bit about YGK?
Sure. Thanks so much for joining us here in our Newton location. We do everything from custom kitchen design through closets, as well as vanity and bathroom options. So all of our cabinetry is produced and manufactured in Germany. So it's a European brand. So we're really well known for that more modern or contemporary aesthetic. We also really strive to make the perfect kitchen and individual kitchen for each client. So we definitely love to meet with our clients and focus on their needs and wants and wishes. And hopefully with our knowledge and their desire to have a new kitchen, we can come up with something that's really personalized for them. And we also have multiple locations. So we're also in Framingham, Weymouth, as well as Burlington, but Newton is our main location. So thank you so much for coming here.
That's wonderful. Who couldn't use a perfect kitchen?
I know, right?
So again, this is Thursday for Knowledge Thursday, or we affectionately call Think with a Drink. We take the information we provide you very seriously. We just don't take ourselves very seriously. So kick back, relax, pour a glass. And today, our Think with a Drink is being sponsored by Scout and Cellar Wines. And we have Aaron Bowes here, our wine consultant with Scout and Cellar, who will also be joining us in conversation a little bit. For now, Aaron, can you share a little bit about Scout and Cellar and what you're pouring for us tonight?
Sure, I'd love to, thanks. So I'm from, like Craig said, I'm from Scout and Cellar Wines, where we source clean crafted wine, which is essentially wine that is free of any additives, chemical pesticides, fertilizers, added sugars. It's really the most pure form of wine that you can get. And we bring it to you from small family-owned vineyards all over the world. And so tonight, actually, or today, I should say, we are tasting a Pinot Noir from France, which is actually delicious. A Pinot Noir is the perfect red to transition us from the summer warmer temperatures into the fall and winter temperatures. It has notes of cranberry, sage, forest floor, so it's an earthy but a light red wine. So yes, go ahead and enjoy. Taste.
Skål. Skål. Delicious. Well, thank you very much for that, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for sponsoring us.
Delicious.
Fantastic. You can sponsor us anytime.
We always like a wine sponsor.
Yes. My last guest on the docket is Tom Alessi. He's an investment advisor with the Moody Street Group, also here in Newton. He specializes in working with businesses and business owners. And Tom, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your practice?
Certainly. It's a tough act to follow there with the two ladies in front of me.
You don't have any wine for us?
No, I don't have any wine. I got my wine, don't touch my wine. Yes, no. So I have been in the financial services business for more than 21 years now. I am actually an investment advisor, as Craig had mentioned, which means I can act or have to act as a fiduciary when dealing with my clients. So the information that I'm dealing with, my practice primarily focuses on working with small businesses and companies, trying to help them be more efficient with what they're doing from a employee benefit and tax planning strategy.
Great. Great, and you know what, I'm gonna stay with you, Tom, because our first topic is gonna be all about PPP. PPP, right? A quick recap for the audience, for PPP program was launched, as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act, or CARES. That was back in March 27th, and it allowed employers to access funds through the SBA to be used to offset closures due to the pandemic. So can I still apply for a PPP?
The answer to that is no. You cannot apply for a PPP loan at this point. They opened the window up back in March. They closed it in June. They reopened it again in July, but then closed it in August.
It's a little confusing.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, did they spend all the money?
No. So there's still about somewhere around $130 billion that's sitting in a slush fund or in a pool.
Wow.
That's part of the next round of stimulus that's going to be made available, right? So that's where you hear some of this conversation that says, hey, the next round of stimulus, what might be available for small businesses? One of them is a conversation of reopening or reallowing for more PPP loans to take place. In some cases, allowing businesses to go back to the well and apply for a second round of PPP loan should they need it to continue to pay their payroll and keep people in.
How do I get the loan from PPP for business?
That's the great question that has come for everybody. So I took the money, right? So initially it was going to be this 8-week time period, and you were going to be able to offset if you use 75% of the money for forgiveness for payroll.
Mhm.
However, they changed that and said, wait, we're gonna make it 60% towards payroll. You can use 40% for other, i.e. mortgage, utility payments, and we can extend it from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. That 24-week time period just ended on Sunday. Last Sunday, October 4th, was the end of the 24-week time period. So now it's okay, I've done that. I did everything I was supposed to do. How do I get this forgiven? Well, banks started taking applications as early as a month ago, the end of August, for it. There have been close to 100,000 applications that have already been sent in.
Yeah.
Not a single one has been processed. So there's a backup waiting right now because the banks are waiting for some guidance from the SBA as to what to do. Now, I will tell you, the SBA right now is talking to the Treasury, and I listened to the Secretary of the Treasury's fireside chat he had the other night, where he was saying that they are trying to get the next round of stimulus to say, with just one page, if you took less than 150,000, if you say I used it for what I was supposed to use it for, they'll forgive the loan.
Okay.
He said in his chat that as of next week, they will have for if you took less than 50,000, a website available that you can go to get guidance with some more information on that.
Okay.
Not up and running yet. The bottom line is start putting together those payroll documents, your utility payments, the mortgage payments that you made. I wouldn't necessarily put in to do anything yet because you're just going to get in line with everybody else. So we're waiting for guidance from the SBA. Realize that the legislation is closed right now. They're not going to come back in session until the 19th with the White House and everything that's going on.
So this is working like every other government program at this point.
Pretty much. I understand though, I mean, we make fun of it a little bit, but I understand that part of it was at the time when this was done, as Craig said, the CARES Act, it was trying to put fires out all over the place, so this was a stopgap measure. It's now like the reality of what do we do and how do we do this, and they're trying to make it easier. It's just, you've got both sides of the aisle playing with stuff. You have an election coming up and we're still in the pandemic. So it is difficult trying to get them to do it.
Well, that's a good segue because the next question is going to be the CARES Act. Right. And I understand how the CARES Act benefited individual people. But what you just said, there's no more, well, there is money, but no way to apply for the money at this point, for businesses. So is there other money available for small businesses trying to survive right now?
Yes, yeah. So one of the things that you had was the SBA has what is known as EIDL, it's Economic Disaster Relief Loan that's available. Don't confuse it with the advance. So one of the things that the SBA did as part of the pandemic, as part of the CARES Act, was they made this advance available pretty much was $1,000 to $10,000 to businesses. Just, it's an advance. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to pay it back, you don't have to, no forgiveness, no paperwork. That money's gone, that doesn't exist. However, those loans, the EIDL, those economic loans are still available through the SBA. So you can request one of those. The SBA does have other loans available. So there are still funds available from the SBA. They're just not necessarily PPP that can be forgiven, or the advance, which was just free money essentially that they were giving out.
And are there any other resources?
Well, certainly go to your local bank, go to sba.gov to ask for information on that. There are other resources, other companies that have been doing, not to promote all the big social media and internet sites, but Facebook and Google have been doing give backs in a way of making ad purchases and different ways of using their services available to small businesses, so that you can get free advertising dollars essentially, or free placement with both of those organizations and other sites as well, that you can tap into, which is something to look at as you're going forward. And we'll talk a little bit about that with the information that comes.
Well, part of our mission, like I said, is to help people have a better relationship with their money, right? So one thing a lot of small business owners have is difficulty managing money. So when you're dealing with, say, government programs and applications for loans, if someone has questions, who they go to talk to about this to help them guide them through
Right,
that
so,
process?
yeah, definitely, obviously a tax professional is one of the first to help you with that, as far as getting those documentation and paperwork together. As I mentioned, certainly the bank or the provider that you got your PPP loan, if you have the loan, that institution would be one of the first places I would go to ask questions. For the other monies that are available, SBA.gov is a great site to look at. And then, locally, your local chamber, another connection to use out there. But I would stick with the tax and legal professional.
Now, I know some people too, if they do reopen it for new applications, right, had trouble because they maybe didn't have an established relationship with banks. How does that play into?
Right, and so in that situation, that's what happened. That's why this money's sitting on the sidelines right now. It's because the relationships, the banks were really reaching out, and to their established customer base, not really considering other organizations or other small businesses that they might not have a relationship with. And so they were sort of closing ranks with that. According to what, again, was the Secretary of the Treasury said the other night, they're going to make this a little bit more open-ended for that. If it's a second round of funding, they will have criteria to get involved. But for those businesses that did not get any PPP funding originally, they're going to make it a little bit more transparent and available through a lot of different institutions.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you for that knowledge. That's
Oh,
fantastic.
absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. So, so the government is trying to help out small businesses, right? Which is all great. And like dealing with government, you have the red tape and all the stuff that goes along with it. In the interim, small businesses still need to survive, right? So what I want to do now is I'm going to turn to our host, Amanda Williams, and our sponsor, Aaron Bose, and we're going to get some insights about what they've been doing that's been working for them through the pandemic to keep their businesses moving, and especially relating to their marketing efforts. So Amanda, can you tell us a little bit about YGK, what you were doing prior to the shutdown as far as marketing goes?
Sure. So I would say prior to the shutdown, our main focus was really to get people in the door. And so obviously when the shutdown happened, we had to absolutely rethink how we did things. So we used to do a lot of trade shows where we'd go into Boston. We did the big one out in Las Vegas called KBIS, which is the biggest kitchen and bath show. Anyone who's in this market absolutely knows what I mean, where it is just thousands upon thousands of people coming in and seeing all the different manufacturers and seeing all the new product for the new year coming out. And you kind of look back on this now and think, how did we even do this? The thought of standing in a room with 10,000 other people just absolutely mind boggles me. It's so wonderful to see all of you and be this close to you right now, but this even feels weird, and it's only 6 of us. So we absolutely had to rethink what we were doing, and pre-COVID, our marketing efforts was absolutely print advertising in all the, local publications, New England Home. We did a lot of builder and architectural magazines. We, of course, would do lunch and learns where we would go into office spaces, bring lunch, speak about our product. Again, totally past tense. People don't want us there anymore. We also, stay away. Nobody wants us. And luckily, we had a really strong hold already on our social media. So we took our social media, and Sophia will kind of dive in this a bit more as she's taken over our marketing post-COVID. But we have a phenomenal Instagram, we have an awesome Facebook, and most importantly, we have a YouTube channel that when I tell you 9 out of 10 people who walk in the front door right now, I am on all the YouTube videos, so I know how they find us.
Recognize her.
Walking through the door.
Exactly. She's YouTube.
They're celebrities.
Yeah.
She's YouTube famous.
Exactly.
So this makes sure I get your autograph before
I'll
we
give
leave
it to
today.
you. I'll give it to you.
Thank you.
But yeah, so they'll take one look and they're like, oh, I know you. And I'm like, you too.
Yeah.
So, do you have an 8x10 stack of glasses?
I know, I need to. I really should go to school. I'll just give out autographs. Yeah. So that was kind of what we were doing pre-COVID, I would say. And really, it was just about coming back. We were probably shut down for a total of 8 weeks. During that time, our showroom did shut down and we did all work remotely. We would come in. We have an amazing owner who absolutely came in every day. He was the sole one here.
Well, she might not here to hear you say that.
I know. He came in every day, and lucky enough, it was really interesting. We started to get a lot of out-of-state clients during COVID.
Wow.
So people who were kind of sitting at home watching YouTube
Yeah.
realized, you know what, I need a new kitchen because I'm now cooking almost every single meal in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And when we reopened the doors at the end of May, I mean, the amount of not foot traffic, but contacting, so either email or phone call or Zoom meetings went through the roof.
And that's like sort of, because
Yeah.
when we came back, like post the lockdown and everything, we really had to figure out how to redirect ourselves because we understood that we weren't going to get foot traffic through our showroom at this time. So we had to think about like how could we engage our audience in a way that, maybe it was working for us before, but how can we do that in a new way? So what we did was that we tried to grow our presence more virtually. So this means YouTube, our Instagram, our Pinterest, and we really focused on our social media platforms and building our contents there and engaging with our audience as much as we
Sophia,
could.
question on that? Can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
something I was thinking of as we were saying that and what Amanda was alluding to. So are the audiences that you're trying to drive to Instagram the same as YouTube? Are these the same, or is it different demographics that you're looking at there? 'Cause
Yes,
being
so
an old dude, I have no idea what Instagram is.
We'll fill you.
He doesn't even know what TikTok is.
Yeah, let's not get
Yeah,
started.
so that's a great point because I was actually gonna touch on
Welcome back. I'm so happy to see you here again on our YouTube.
all our platforms
I'm
together
so
because we are trying to have that consistent audience. We're trying to bring in that consistent audience. So if we're posting on YouTube, we make sure to mention our Instagram. If we're posting on our Instagram, we make sure to link our YouTube and, talk about ways that you can find us. So we try to give as many outlets through our social medias so that our audiences can attain our business. So we are trying to have that ultimate audience.
Let me ask you this too. It sounds like some of the social stuff you were doing prior to COVID,
Mhm.
right? And the YouTube channels that started prior to COVID.
Yep.
When COVID hit back in March
Mhm.
and things started to shut down, was there any kind of a fear factor maybe that stopped?
Hi, and welcome back to Arlington,
How
Massachusetts
did you
for
pivot? What
renovation.
was the pivot
We are
point and
super
what was
excited to show you
what was
this
the impact
project.
you saw on your
Probably
business immediately and then how you reacted to that?
So
Hi,
the
welcome
immediate
back.
impact on the
Our
business was really
channel.
scary. So it was like we went and all of you lived through it. It was like 1 week we were okay and the next week we were not okay. And what are we gonna do? And so what we noticed and what scared us the most is all of a sudden, every project that we were working on where people weren't building a new home or had to do this renovation completely stopped. They said, I'm so sorry, Amanda, but we aren't gonna do this. We really don't know what's happening and we're gonna stop. And so we really lost, I would say it was kind of a 50-50 split. People who were building homes who still move forward versus people who absolutely stopped. And so at that point we thought, okay, this is not a great start to April. This is absolutely our most, this is where we are gearing up to get all the renovations started. And that's when we realized we absolutely have to devote a ton of energy into the social media platforms. And we just started dumping content in so that it kept our business relevant and kept our business on Google, which was so important. And we did a lot of back work on that as well to make sure that our search engine, when you search for us, we came up on top.
So what you're saying is it's not just about dumping a lot of content, it's also making that content relevant to your viewer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Like an example, in our YouTube, we had this whole mini series of how to use our Miele appliances that we sell here in our showroom. So we did like a fun set, like a few sets of videos where we were baking pizza, we made different dishes, and we just put out a bunch of videos on how to use the appliances, and it gave our audience some insight on what we sell and how to use the appliances that we sell. And so it was like a fun way to engage our audience, but also giving useful content.
And so you guys found that to be very, very helpful. So that would be something that you'd be saying just to the general, business population, obviously, in terms of that this might be an area or an avenue to be thinking about as a way to help them engage or encourage their
And you can
whatever
get
they're
super
doing.
creative with it too, so it's fun. You can make it fun. We make it very fun here. So
We know that. We
yeah.
got something.
Exactly. No fun at all here.
So I want to come back to this, so keep that thought in mind. But I also want to turn to Erin, because I know you own a small business.
Yes.
And you went through some of that same challenge, right?
Yeah.
So what were you doing post-COVID?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. So my business is set up differently in the sense that I'm actually an independent contractor. So, I have a company that I work for that has they're kind of the mainframe of the company, but then I'm branding myself as well as a small business owner. And honestly, our company has been set up from the get-go as an e-commerce business. So wine is inherently social. Which also lent for it to be a social media kind of ready product. But what happens is that it's totally dependent upon the user, right? So I love that you brought up, I don't know anything about Instagram, because I think that, it depends, right, on your generational gap or how you grew up. For me, Facebook was the big shiny thing, and for other younger generations coming up, it's what's Facebook, right? It's so obsolete in some.
Like if I say big wheels.
Yeah. So for me, it really has been a little bit of a challenge to figure out which platforms to attack. But where I found the most success in pivoting business, because honestly, pre-COVID, I would say 90% of my business was done in person. So events, right? Wine tasting events, educating people, doing networking events. So having to pivot all of that online, where I chose to focus was on getting those meetings going again, but just virtually. So how do we do that? We utilize programs like Zoom and other Facebook Lives, where we can engage and interact directly with the audience. So versus me shooting a YouTube video or just uploading content, it became, we're moving this wine tasting online. And the key to doing that, we had to make it super interactive, right? Because they didn't want to just hear me talking and lecturing and educating. So sometimes people just showed up on their couch with their favorite glass of wine. Sometimes we shipped out wine to them ahead of the tasting, so everybody came with the wine we were tasting that night. So it was good. I mean, I will say that April and, March and April, we kind of pivoted to doing these online events. Come May, everybody was kind of done with being home, having the kids remote learning, and also people were honestly scared about going into the grocery store, going into the liquor store. Our so direct to door alcohol sales skyrocketed, 500% growth in the month of May.
Being home with 2 teenagers, I can't imagine why that would be the case.
So May.
How much of this? I had 6 classes.
Yeah, it was like more like instead of like give me 2 bottles, it was like give me 2 cases of that. So, it was just an interesting thing because, I had to continue almost just pivoting like where the need was, right? So we'll see. Fall is, we're back in school. It's about a month in, right? It's about a month in, maybe less. And I think we're all gonna be maybe at that place again. We're gonna see a lot more calling for direct, like food service delivery, alcohol delivery, clothing delivery as we get into the cooler months.
Yeah.
And, we see like restaurants shutting down again, maybe.
But it sounds like, for both of your stories, the similarity I'm hearing is that you were innovative,
You had to be,
right? You pivoted,
Yeah,
and then sometimes, that can be a strength, right? So
totally.
what are some of the things that you're doing now that you wouldn't have thought to do later that you think would actually are enhancing your business?
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that I think I saw a lot of value in being able to do these online events because I had more reach, so I was able to go outside my immediate regional area. And also I didn't have the travel time. There was no travel time, there was no setup time, so while I think as long as the opportunity presents itself, I'll always want the connection of an in-person event. I think I would never turn down, a virtual event, because there is such great opportunity there to still connect with people.
Right.
And then networking groups, absolutely. I will continue running my networking groups virtually for probably here on out.
Wow.
Because more people showed up.
Yeah.
Because they
Well,
didn't
that's right.
have to
It was
deal with
easy.
it was easier. It was easier for people, and it was
Instant access.
faster.
Yeah.
You could pop on and pop off and get on with your day.
So everybody's a celebrity now, which is.
That's right.
Everyone has their own channel.
Everybody's a channel. Everybody's a star. I like
We
it.
just have to get Tom his own channel.
So the other question too is, what about you, Amanda? What are some of the things that you are doing now that you'll continue to do that you wouldn't have thought about doing?
So this might sound really silly, or I'm not sure if it'll sound silly, but you tell me. I think we are selling smarter. What do I mean by that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I think that we're selling smarter in the sense that we, of course, always get clients who are very serious, and then you always get clients who maybe are not as serious and are just here because they've been staring at their kitchen now for
They're
6
kicking
months
tires,
and they're
as they
kicking
say.
tires. Exactly. So we call them tire kickers. So I would say what we're doing now is selling smarter. We are really trying to understand what the client is looking for because we're trying to minimize the amount of foot traffic that comes in the front door.
Mhm.
So like I said before, we wanted more people, the better. Now, less people, but people who are serious. So I think that I've learned to sell smarter. I think I've learned to ask questions in a bit of a different way.
Mhm.
I've completely done Zoom meetings for kitchens, which was a whole new world for us. We really had not
chapter here at
a whole new chapter for that. And I've learned definitely now how to do that because kitchen sales is a very technical industry and you need to feel it, you need to touch it. So how do you communicate this through a screen? So it's all about, figuring out how to kind of grab that client and, as I say, kind of hook them and make them want to come back for more, but also selling smarter so that if they do come in the showroom, we're really limiting the amount of time that they're here and the amount of visits that they need to come.
Now, is that also an issue? Like, if you only have so many people in the showroom at a time?
I think there is a cap. I will be honest, we don't run into that issue here. We're not, a massive, 10,000 square foot facility.
Not the mall, people are shutting
No.
down, right?
I would say this is probably the most amount of people we've had in the showroom since we've come back, believe it or not. We really try and schedule our meetings accordingly. We try not to put them when other clients are here. So as I said, we're selling smarter.
That's wonderful.
Right,
Yeah.
so just to follow up with that with a question, because it made me think of something, so would you almost recommend, I don't wanna say it as like a reevaluation or almost like a checklist for a business to go through to say, you know, hey, this, like we talked about, this is what we were doing,
Yep.
and this is sort of the transition, or looking to 2021, this is maybe a better way that we could try to do this, and some sort of, I call it a transitioning phase type of thing, like we might be able to do this, put these steps in place as we head in here. type of
Yeah,
thing.
it's something that we definitely have to talk about. We haven't gotten to kind of 2021 yet. I think we were just thinking more in the present moment and
Maybe like
keeping that
yeah.
continued on, but we definitely will look into 2021. And I know for a fact that we're going to take components that we learned from 2020 and continue
It's a
them
work in
on.
progress every
Yeah.
single day. We learn new strategies, new ways that work better for us, and we're continuing to figure that out and find new strategies, and we're open to new ideas every
It's
day.
about
So
American ingenuity. So to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
American
exactly.
trying to be as innovative.
So let me ask you this question, not to, this is so positive, it's fantastic, but
Yeah.
can you tell me, do you know of maybe competitors that weren't able to make that pivot?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then how,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I have some advice actually for
Please.
people who, so I think what we probably all see in what is probably like the underlying theme is that the businesses that succeeded through this shutdown and were able to come out on the other side were the ones that were set up to go online, right? And if they weren't set up to go online, they learned how to. So I think for some people I saw, they shied away from learning because maybe they were scared about learning how to get a platform up and running. So I would say that even though things are open and business is kind of moving in a better direction right now, if you have time to invest in learning how to, set up these online channels, whether it's a website, social media, YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is that you need to use, because ultimately what you want to happen is you want to be prepared already now when things are seemingly good, in case you have to pivot again and there's just a lot of uncertainty. So I absolutely think it is worth your time to set up some sort of an online platform so you can move your business online if needed.
Well, I want to talk to that real quick too in our practice as far as the Ayers Foundation and all that. So we used to do a lot of in-person presentations, workshops, right? And so now trying to work with people virtually, because you're losing that in-person, that you're losing all of the body language, the eye contact, all that stuff that you had before. So you're trying to actually find a new way to connect with people, and you got to use it. So for me, some of that was making sure I had the right technology set up.
Yeah.
That I was comfortable with
Yeah.
the camera, the computer system, the software. Was playing with it. Having doing Zooms with my kids just so they go, hey, am I look okay? Am I too close?
Yeah, get the kids involved. They know more than me.
So you don't get that upward angle.
Yeah,
So a lot of this is like anything else. If it's brand new, it's scary.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's really about can I become comfortable with a new format and find a way to present myself in a new way. I don't know if that's a challenge I had up front. I don't know about you, Tom, but that's something that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and for me, because, you mentioned about virtual networking.
Yeah.
I probably at the top of the networking club, right? I go everywhere.
Did you say you network a lot?
Yes.
Just a little.
However, doing it virtually is a struggle.
Could you take me back to my
Different
point?
animals, a different
Mr.
conversation.
President,
Something I'm still trying to adapt at and get better with and more comfortable at. Because it's a challenge, and it's just something that I have to adapt to. As Evan said, going forward, it's pretty much how most groups are probably going to be for a lot of this.
about how
And
this,
so it is one of those, you have to sort of take a look at it and say, well, okay, maybe I fell into a comfort zone with this stuff, and I need to look outside of the box or get out of my comfort zone if I'm going to continue to try to survive and grow in this, because I don't see this going away anytime soon. So it's something to be prepared for, and as Erin said, maybe take a little bit of time and spend a little bit of effort to get yourself more comfortable in some aspect of it.
Well, let me ask you this, Tom, too, a little bit off the topic, just a tiny bit. is, another big problem with the pandemic is that unemployment, right? So I know a lot of people I've talked to when I do my planning business, I'd love to start my own business, but I don't want to give up my job. Well, now you're out of a job. Is this a good time to start a new business per se, if you have a creative idea and can?
Well, from a point of being a consultant, absolutely, right? So there's always the opportunity, and as both YGK and Scout and Cellar have said today, the ability to transition to online presence, especially if you're somebody who's comfortable at it and has done it and is aware or has access to whether it's channels or social media, more opportunity is there. So absolutely. And yeah, let's face it, some of those businesses that were operating before, even with another round of stimulus or another package, just may not come back. That's the reality today.
Well, doesn't it also a little bit level the playing field? Because how much does it cost to do a YouTube channel? Is it expensive?
It depends on how you do it. So you can either hire, a whole crew to film it, or if you're lucky enough for us, we have very highly educated people in this industry, and we film it ourselves.
But can you do it with one of these?
You can.
Maybe start with a cell phone?
You can.
These phones are pretty good.
Not
actually.
just any cell phone. You definitely want like the good cell phones.
Well, I'm not gonna advertise
latest.
myself.
Okay, yeah, like the highest
Like my Pixel
iPhone
3
model,
iPhone.
yeah. So yeah, anyone can do a YouTube channel, but not everyone can make it look and present as well as I would say ours.
Well, is that a learning
presented.
curve, you think, maybe?
100%.
100%. So you go to your teenagers, you have lots of FaceTime. And
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
Well,
don't do that one.
I was gonna say, I might be rethinking my 11-year-old's dream of becoming a YouTuber. There's no way that's happening.
Great
Now I'm
point.
kind of thinking this could be beneficial for both of us. So.
Well, I think
But, yeah.
what my point is, I'm just trying to put out there is, lots of negative that happens with the
Right.
pandemic, lots of negative. But I think there's also lots of opportunity
Tons of opportunity.
for people who are creative, people who want to get out in front of it, and also for people who don't have necessarily a huge budget, because social media is accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's really about the content and making it relevant. It's really about capturing people's attention and how you do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, your forte in marketing. I know you have some forte in marketing, so I must see some unique opportunities in that. Right?
The other thing that's quite interesting, I want to share a really interesting stat. 50% of American adults that work have a side income stream.
Was that called a side hustle?
A side hustle. Wait, let's go through all of this. Side gig, side hustle, side job,
Follow what you want.
right? Because we're learning that there is a lot of uncertainty. So what happens is when you diversify, just like your investment portfolio.
I love it.
Ooh, I like it.
When you
Listen to you.
diversify your income streams, you are creating another, line of security for you and your family. Should, like you said, your other job, something happen where you get laid off, or your company closes or whatnot. So that's kind of in the line of work that I'm in. We have the majority of our independent consultants are actually working full time. They have other careers full time, and then they do this for like a side income stream. And I think it's I just never realized how many people. Maybe. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes a lot of sense though when you look at Forbes has covered this extensively, and we're just moving into a different time. I think it's smart to think about other ways, and that's where the opportunity comes too. So if you're out of work now, there is a lot of negative, but you got to look at I always look at negative instead of saying it's negative. I say, what can I turn this around? Like, what's the opportunity here? So.
Well, I think this is a country of survivors. We find how to do
Absolutely.
things.
Yeah,
We get creative.
Yeah.
We adapt to the situation and the environment. And I think this is, like you just said, a world of opportunity ahead for people. And I think it's going to be, it's a negative now.
Yeah.
I think we see a lot of positive impact in the future. So.
And it's so easy to, take that habit, or not that habit, but that hobby that you really loved, and you can learn it now online. I mean, 20 years ago, you couldn't Google, I don't know, how to make a sword. You could you can YouTube live. So, I mean, these people, like Erin was saying, who want a second career, you can really do that now.
Is there a particular reason that you want to make a sword?
No, I don't know.
No.
Maybe you can make a sword.
It's a work of fire and iron, right?
I don't know.
Swords and wine tasting would be an
Swords and wine, now go well
Swords and
together,
wine,
yeah,
I
let's do it.
Well, that's a
See
hobby.
what happens. Stay tuned.
All right,
Have a
well,
lot of candies.
in the interest of time, because we are at about 17 minutes after right now, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much to Amanda and
Sorry.
Sophia. Yeah, I know, but we're running, you want to go through it a little bit?
Well, we did, because we said we would.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll talk a little bit about
So
that.
scrap
I'm sorry.
that, we're
Scrap that.
back.
Rewind.
Rewind.
So anyway, so let's talk a little bit. I know Erin had some questions regarding the organization of her business and whether it makes sense to stay as a sole proprietor and maybe go to an LLC.
Yeah.
And so while we have the expert Tom here, we're gonna actually talk
Reason I brought it up.
about some, showcase here. This is YouTube
Yeah.
material, right?
This
And it's
video,
relevant.
stay ready.
So what we talk a little bit about, Erin currently operating as a sole proprietor. What are some of your concerns about being a sole proprietor?
Sure. So I think like a lot of people that I know who are self-employed, or even just at a consultant level, once you kind of have enough, income stream to kind of like start thinking about how you want to, not just for like a tax purposes, but also as like a protection now for your other assets maybe. Liability and stuff. So it's hard to know because there's no real guidance around this. When is it the right time to kind of start looking at that? Like I said, this started as a side gig, turned full-time career. So I never really thought of it. I never anticipated it. So when I set it up, I did not set it up initially as an LLC. And now I've been kind of toying with the idea. So I would love to just know, what are some of the benefits to doing it? Are there any kind of cons or difficulties or other things to think about? And then, what's the process?
Right, so the initial benefit, there are benefits, right? So the initial benefit, like you said, is that liability, right? Because as an LLC, right now, everything is on you, right? So it's passed through for everything, including if somebody decides to come, if somebody gets sick or something from the fund, they're gonna come back on
It's
you.
not gonna happen.
And the LLC is a limited liability company, correct?
Right, so if you set it up as an LLC, the LLC is treated as what is called an indifferent company, right? So it's not attached to you. The company has its separate things, so they cannot come after you.
Which also means, if I'm reading this correctly, that they also can't come after my assets, like my home.
Correct, right,
Right.
that's where it is, it's
Gotcha.
separate.
Only the assets of the LLC, correct?
Only the assets of the LLC, right? From a tax point of view, most LLCs, it's passed through, right? So your tax rate that you're paying now is the tax rate you're going to pay. It's the same thing,
Same
the
thing,
income
gotcha.
passes through. However, there are certain business deductions that you can take as an LLC that you may not be able to take as a sole proprietor that come right off the top, right?
Gotcha.
Because it's corporate, so you might be able to have a little bit more deductions than what you've been getting as that sole prop or 1099 self-employed, right?
Okay.
So there is some of that,
Okay.
okay? So good from that standpoint.
Okay.
The con is that it's a cost. This is what
Right.
we talk about
Right.
right away. So
Yeah.
it's $500 to file
Okay.
for an LLC. And in Massachusetts, it's $500 every year
Okay.
to maintain the LLC filing, okay?
Yeah.
You do have to have a registered agent. Now, a registered agent is just a term. You can have somebody who's an accountant or a lawyer who's
Okay,
acting as a
gotcha.
registered agent. You, as somebody who's part of the corporation, can be the registered agent.
Okay.
You can receive the information and details for the filing as far as that's concerned. But other than that, there really isn't any cons to being an LLC. You know, it's just you have to go through
The
the
process.
process of
And
filing
pay like the annual fee.
and pay that
and
annual
stuff.
fee. That's where you're.
What about when you go to file taxes? So like if I'm somebody who, as right now, files my own, has my husband's in finance, so he does our taxes.
Right.
Is it, when you form the LLC, now are you looking at we absolutely are using an accountant for that, or does it not necessarily?
Not
mean you have to?
Necessarily, depends on the complexity.
Yeah, gotcha.
And like I
Okay.
said, the only thing is that you might want to, and this again, going to tax professional and asking for tax professional advice, because there might be some additional expenditures that you're not getting right now that you could get.
It's very light.
So it's called tax avoidance,
Yes.
not evasion, and there is a fine line. My accounting teacher told me, one, you save money, one, you go to jail.
Yeah.
And just to quick question for that, also the benefit, I would think to an LLC is she can have tax write-offs because it's now her own entity, right?
Right, that's what I'm saying, is
Oh.
that's that above the line
Additional
tax.
You get additional write-offs, right.
Yeah, so that fine line you're talking about is one to go to LLC versus a S corp.
Yeah.
I mean, not an S corp, but
Sole
sole proprietor
Yeah.
is what it makes economic sense.
Yeah.
Am I getting enough write-offs to make up for the cost of
Okay,
the
that
extra
makes
taxes and the
total
fee?
sense. So
Right.
it's really just kind of crunching numbers, looking at
Yeah,
it.
and that's
Well,
where you're at.
Yeah,
If this is a hobby business,
Yeah.
and let's say you're making $5,000 a year,
right,
why do you want to give up 10 or 15% of your
right, it
income
might not make sense in that.
to save on liability? Maybe you
Makes
just get
sense.
some overhead insurance, and that kind of thing, maybe make more sense.
Yeah.
So it's really about, like I said, doing the numbers and saying, well, you know what, now I'm doing this more, like you said, we're banging it out, we're selling lots of, stuff
Yeah.
now. So maybe my sales are reaching a point where it just makes sense to protect myself.
Yeah, I love that. And this is really helpful because honestly, whether you're a real estate agent, or you own your own small business, or you have like your own little bakery and you do cupcakes, like people just don't know.
Right.
When is that time? I think, so this is great.
Yeah, and almost everybody's in your position here. Everybody starts off usually as a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
And then they decide at some point, now I gotta reorganize. And whether that's an LLC, an S corp, or a C corp, that's really a conversation to have with your accountant and your attorney
Okay.
to see what,
Where,
where you
An LLC is usually the most, one will see the most typical from a 1099 or self-employed, sole proprietor going to, because it is fairly seamless. Like I said, the tax, is passed through, so it doesn't matter. And it's a fairly easy process. There's not a lot of paperwork that's involved that goes with it.
So that's what you want, no lifting.
and you, to file, you're going through an accountant or a lawyer, or can you just do it on your own?
You can do it on your own.
Okay.
It's paperwork you can generate. You can go right to, mass.gov. You can generate the paperwork from there as far as going through that.
Okay.
And you, again, it's gonna ask you for that registered agent, but you can be the registered agent.
Okay.
If you have an accountant, you can use that, or obviously, as based on the conversation, your husband is acting as your financial, the tax guy, so you put him
Whether I
down.
want him to or not,
Exactly,
yes.
If you're not legal,
Well, you gotta
savvy,
put him on the board in terms
Like-
of dealing with that.
I'm in finance, I know how to do it.
and if you're not savvy that way or not comfortable, really though, seek out for the few $100s it's gonna cost you to have an accountant.
It would make
attorney
a lot
do
And
it.
that's
You
all
don't
I
wanna
do.
mess up the filing.
Always seek the advice of a professional, both
Always
legal
seek
and
advice from a
tax.
professional. Excellent, that's great insight. Yeah, thank you, I appreciate this so much.
Well, thank you for stopping us and recapping that.
That's all right.
Appreciate
It's
that.
no, I knew it was something that Aaron had mentioned before, so we just wanted to make sure we got it.
And for those viewers who are hung on, thank you very much for doing that. And if you're out of line, we understand, as I am, well, I think my glasses.
You got an extra.
I got an extra.
That's Melanie.
I was gonna say, it's
That's
not
what it
the crew should enjoy as well.
Well, thank you very much to Melanie. She's our
Thank you,
assistant behind the
Melanie.
scenes, keeping us all on track here. So in closing, like I said, I just want to say thank you to Amanda again. I think you're the second time.
Of
And
course.
Sophia for hosting us in your lovely showroom. I want to thank Aaron and Scout and Cellar for sponsoring us today.
Absolutely.
Fantastic wine. And this is the one that doesn't give you a hangover. Is that what I remember?
So legally, well, I can't say that.
Well, I said
What it breaks down to is you don't have any of the added sugars, you don't have any of the excess sulfites, and no chemical additives. So when you remove all of that,
So it's the healthy one.
it's a healthier glass of wine for
All
sure.
right. So I'm going to keep drinking for my
Yeah.
health.
Most of the time, people who get headaches from red wine, especially, can drink an organic, natural wine like this. It's minimally processed without those effects. So the hangover part the next morning, yeah, unlikely.
So we'll wake up with any face tat.
Don't drink 12 bottles in a day.
Yeah. Well, you're carrying swords and drinking wine. I don't know. And I also want to thank Tom Alessi for being here and sharing his expertise. 20 years in the industry. This guy knows his stuff, so I really appreciate that. So at this point, we'll turn to Melanie and see, do we have any questions for her?
No.
We don't, so we did such a good job.
Yes.
And no one even has a question.
Answered all the questions.
That is fantastic. Well, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at www.aresfoundation.org and and we will help you in any way we possibly can. Thank you for viewing and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Bye.
That was fun.
And
So
And
fun.
scene.